Now, without further ado, I'd like to kick it off to my colleague here at EverFi, Holly Ryder-Mirkovich, who is Senior Director of Prevention Education, and Elvin Bruno, which is with our partner It's On Us, who's a campus program director over It's On Us. So, Holly and Elvin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Michele, and I'm so excited about our Sexual Assault Awareness Month webinar, Voices of Courage, College Students Speak from the Front Lines of Sexual Violence Prevention. For those of you who have not joined us with an EverFi webinar in the past, I'm Holly Ryder-Mirkovich. I'm our Senior Director of Prevention Education here at EverFi, focusing on sexual assault and sexual harassment prevention on college campuses. I come to this work from nearly 2 decades of sexual violence prevention work, including a decade on campus, and have had the tremendous fortune of working with It's On Us, both when it was a part of the Obama administration efforts and now, of course, as its own initiative, really transforming college campuses. And so delighted to be here with my colleague, Elvin Bruno Jr., It's On Us Campus Program Director. And I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself, Elvin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Holly, for that excellent introduction. My name is Elvin Bruno Jr., and I am the Campus Program Director with It's On Us. I have the privilege of working with our student leaders on college campuses all around the country every single day. And I come from a political organizing and campus organizing background, and I'm so excited to be here with you today to share the story of our Courage Award winners.
Wonderful. So we're going to just take a couple of minutes for those of you who may be joining an EverFi webinar for the first time to share both a little bit about EverFi and about It's On Us. So we'll go ahead and launch right into EverFi. For many of you may know our work primarily from the campus perspective, which is such an important part of the work that we do. But we also have many other parts of our organization. So across all of the areas of impact that we seek to reach, we have over 18 million learners. When we look at our work in higher education more broadly, EverFi is so proud to work with 1,700 colleges and universities across the country, as you can see, with a huge diversity of institutions, rural, suburban, urban, a huge variety of different kinds of institutions, and 5 million learners annually. And so one of the things that we are so excited about is being able to leverage that tremendous power of our network of higher education learners to really share the stories of the Biden Courage Award winners that we're gonna speak with in just a few minutes. And so, Elvin, could you tell us now a little bit more about It's On Us?
Absolutely. It's On Us's mission is to build the movement to combat sexual assault by engaging young men in changing campus culture. Throughout the last 3.5 years, It's On Us has engaged students on over 500 college and university campuses in our campus organizing program. And our student leaders have held more than 3,500 sexual assault prevention education programs nationwide. We also have over 440,000 students who have taken the It's On Us pledge on our website to commit to taking a stand against sexual assault on their college campus.
Wow, talk about two serious network platforms coming together. So exciting to be a part of this webinar today. Let's now learn a little bit about the 2018 Biden Courage Awards.
Thanks, Holly. On Wednesday, April 18th, It's On Us and the Biden Foundation hosted the Courage Awards at the Russian Tea Room in New York City. Activists, influencers, and movement leaders gathered to celebrate our 4 student leaders who are on the webinar today for their dedicated work to stop sexual assault in their communities. The Biden Courage Awards recognize students in 4 categories of action: policy change, Greek student organizing, campus organizing, and bystander intervention. We received over 800 nominations from students across the country. Out of this network of change makers, these 4 students stood out to us as leaders who embodied Vice President Biden's mission to put an end to campus sexual assault. The Biden Courage Awards were dedicated to these 4 students for their leadership, action, and commitment to end sexual violence.
All right, and we are so excited to now introduce you to our panelists who are going to be spending the rest of our webinar and really hearing from them and learning more about their perspectives, their vision, their story. So the first Biden Courage Award winner is Cadet Teresa Hinman, who comes from the United States Military Academy at West Point. So Cadet Hinman won the award for campus organizing, and she is a senior at West Point, and she is the Academy's It's On Us lead.
And the next Biden Courage Award winner was Kyle Richard, and he is a junior kinesiology major and football player at SUNY Cortland, and Kyle won the Biden Courage Award for bystander intervention.
Tori Schaefer won the award for policy change, and Tori comes to us as a senior at the University of Missouri and a leader of their It's On Us chapter.
And our fourth Biden Courage Award winner is Kyle Shepard. Kyle won the award for Greek campus organizing, and he is a graduate student in educational leadership at Delaware State University and a member of the Alpha Pi Alpha fraternity.
All right, we are going to go ahead and get started now with the first question, because we know that it's the student voices that you want to hear on this webinar.
This is for
So this is going to be to all of our participants, and we'll go ahead and ask that you start by answering these in the order we just introduced you. So Teresa, you'll be the first one to answer this question.
Teresa, why did It's On Us and the Biden Foundation select you for this award?
Hi everyone. So I was selected for the Campus Organizing Award because of all of the workshops and different activities that we do at West Point with It's On Us. So we had a football game, a basketball game, and lacrosse game that was hosted by It's On Us, kind of to just bring awareness about sexual harassment and assault. And then we've also run different workshops with our class, the different classes that we have here, and just working on really getting everyone in the Corps of Cadets to really understand that sexual assault is a problem and what ways we can go about in preventing it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Teresa. Kyle Richard, could you share a little bit about your story and why the Biden Foundation and It's On Us selected you for this award?
Hello, everybody. I was selected for the Bystander Intervention Award because I took a stand against a sexual violence perpetrator and stood up for a potential rape victim. The moment that was, ultimately made me publicly promote being an active bystander. So throughout my community, throughout back at home, and on the school campus.
Thank you so much, Kyle Richard. Tori, do you want to share a little bit about your story?
Of course. Hey, everyone. I started working with It's On Us my freshman year of college, and since then was appointed to numerous task forces on our University of Missouri's campus. That included working with the Title IX office, and I worked with a lot of law professors and Title IX administrators to perfect our Title IX policies to make them more survivor-centered, and so students could easily report. And I also wrote a bill that is currently going through the Missouri House that teaches on, that advocates for consent and sexual violence and sexual harassment being taught in Missouri public schools, because we believe that if you teach consent early on, you will see a reduction in the amount of sexual violence happening on the college campus.
Wow, that is amazing, Tori. Thank you so much. And Kyle Shepard, share a little bit about your story.
Definitely, I appreciate it. And also, I appreciate the phone call. Again, my name is Kyle Shepard, member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. We're here at Delaware State University. I was honored enough to be nominated, unbeknownst to myself. So a lot of this is still news to me, and it's still seeping in and, still taking a little bit while to hit me. But what I was nominated for was the award for Greek leadership, and what that encompassed. My nominators saw that the work I did for my senior capstone was titled My Brother's Keeper Initiative, a Bystander Intervention and Men's Initiative Model. And basically, in short, what that model did was it showed a graph of how a route could take from counseling services, which is on campus, as well as our group called the Sexual Assault Response Advocates, and basically partner with each other to provide training to our Student Government Association, SGA, as well as MPHC. MPHC stands for the National Panhellenic Council of our Greek organizations, as well as different student organizations and our RAs, our Residence Hall advisors. So basically, that bystander intervention method and model, drafted a proposal to say, how we can incorporate a minimum amount of training hours in sexual violence prevention to kind of incorporate it into a policy. And it's been a blessing to see it blossom since.
Wow, that's incredible, Kyle. Thank you for sharing your story with us. This next question goes to Teresa. Teresa, can you tell us a little bit about what strategies or approaches you have found to be effective on your campus and in your organization?
So at West Point, we're really lucky because we already have a structure set in place. So I lead 45 different cadets in our Cadets Against Sexual Harassment and Assault program. But what we've really found effective to be, to get the message out there is to really send the message in a positive light. So instead of telling people to not go out and assault someone, which most people won't do, we talk about how they can help their friend or how they can have better and healthier relationships in order to make the message hit home to them and make it something that they can do and somehow affect their life.
Wow, I love that positive approach. That's also aligned with what we know is a best practice in prevention. So it's so exciting to see that work happening at West Point.
I actually want to pose that same question to Kyle Shepard. So Kyle, what strategies or approaches have you found to be effective on your campus?
Definitely, that's a great question, and I think I agree a lot with what Teresa mentioned, where you kind of have to develop a positive atmosphere, a positive space, because we know that, especially dealing with this male population, that it can turn a lot of people away and off if you automatically come from a circumstance, perspective of them thinking that they're already accused of something or guilty of something. Whether or not that is or not the case, we want to make sure that we're all learning, and it's a process where we have to kind of meet people where they are. So I'll give two examples. One of the organizations I work with is Men of Color Alliance, which is also mentioned during the Biden Courage Awards. So when I joined the Men of Color Alliance, a student organization at the university, they already had in place something called barbershop talk. So basically what they did was, at the bottom of some of our residence halls, they would provide like informal meetings with just men only, with just guys only. And they were trying to just talk about various issues going on campus, from parties to academics, classwork, to student leadership involvement, things like that. So that formula was already in place. And as I got involved with the organization and also got involved with SARA, I said, well, how about we try to bring some of our SARA training to those barbershop talks, because the essence of the barbershop talk is to have conversations that we normally wouldn't have in other avenues or in other locations that guys will not want to have with each other. But in a space like that, where we're also providing the opportunity for free haircuts and things like that, they're much more receptive to that type of information that they wouldn't normally get. So that was a blessing. And then another one is definitely something that already exists under the fraternity. For Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, they have a national program which is called Project Alpha. And the 3 goals of Project Alpha already are just sharing knowledge, changing attitudes, and providing skills of empowerment, healthy masculinity, and also sexual violence prevention and teen pregnancy. So luckily enough, there's some curriculums and rubrics that are already in place, and it's just about catering it to the demographic that you're dealing with.
You know, a couple of things that I loved about what you just talked about,
Mhm.
Kyle Shepard, is, you know, number one, reaching folks where they are and, you know, really coming to them with the message, and also just engaging the community in ways that are meaningful to them. So really, you know, being open to bringing the message to the spaces where individuals feel comfortable learning and sharing is, I think, really a lesson that prevention practitioners across the country can, you know, continue to try to reiterate in their own work. So thank you so much for that. Next, we're going to have a question for all of the participants, and I'm going to ask Tori if you could speak first, and then we'd love to hear from you, Kyle, Richard, about what are some of the challenges that you faced as you've sought to create change on your campus or in your organization?
Yeah, so one of the first challenges that we had when we launched It's On Us on our campus shortly after President Barack Obama and Vice President Joe Biden launched it in 2014, and we actually got a lot of no's from campus administration saying that we didn't want to take on this initiative. There were already similar initiatives on our campus. So one really big issue for us is we had to find out where It's On Us could fit into our campus structure. And once we figured that out, working with our Rape Crisis Center on campus and finding out how we could, you know, bring in the education component into It's On Us and using it as like an awareness-based campaign, that really worked for us with us being a public university. Another issue that we faced was funding. And so we had to really, early on, we had to figure out who our stakeholders were. Mizzou Athletics ended up being a big stakeholder for us in that and contribute to our Teal Out baseball game, and the Honors College gives us a lot of money to do programming. But finding out those stakeholders and finding our place on campus were definitely our two biggest issues. But we were able to overcome that, and now we have over 100 student members who are currently actively involved in our It's On Us chapter.
Over 100 members. That's a huge feat of organizing. So University of Missouri, Mizzou should be really proud of the work, and I hope you're really proud of the work as well. Kyle, Richard, what about you?
I've got to say that originally, even before all of this happened with me, and before I started promoting these active bystanders, I was the captain of the football team my junior year, and I always had some type of influence on the campus through that. I didn't realize that my influence could stretch so far. So luckily, these struggles aren't with people listening or anything like that. It's mostly with the stigma around being an athlete, being a student athlete, because there are so many cases involved in NCAA. People with the scandals and stuff, where it could be a football player, it could be a lacrosse, it could be there's so many stories out there. To shine the positive light that there are people that are athletes or just people in general that will stand up for somebody who's being sexually assaulted, or and promote that in a positive light, like Kyle, I'm sure, said. And that's really the main struggle. If I were to pick one out, is just having people listen to an athlete, because I know it's so hard for many victims out there to do that.
I really appreciate that you really surfaced that some athletes unfairly experience stigma around, some of the negative effects of very few. And we know that so many student athletes across the country are really committed to creating safe and healthy communities. So thank you so much for surfacing that for us. Kyle Shepard, and then Teresa Hinman, we'd love to hear from you as well on this question.
Definitely. Well, I would say some of the barriers that I noticed, and I think Teresa mentioned it as well, is like trying to figure out where this national program ties into what the university already has in place. So luckily there were directors, like one of which my mentor, Dr. Pauline Meek, who actually nominated me for the award, had this program like the SARA program, the Sexual Assault Response Advocates. However, we know that, funding and consistent funding is definitely a barrier, definitely a challenge. Trying to find that consistency of how do we get the proper administrators and the overall overhead to understand that this is already a need and an issue of such a larger core value that we should stand for. And I think just trying to gear that conversation back to understanding, how many stakeholders are really involved and to kind of gather that conversation up. I mean, getting over that challenge and getting over that speed bump started to make things roll from there. But again, I think some of our university challenges are definitely akin to what Kyle, Richard, and Teresa just mentioned.
And Teresa?
Hi, so actually at West Point, we are super lucky because our leadership here is so supportive of us preventing sexual violence. So everyone at the academy has to go to 5 classes a year here, specifically about sexual harassment and assault and its prevention. So we have the audience. The real challenge is just, what I talked about earlier, messaging it right and making sure that people who think sexual violence is not their problem, how do we get them invested, and how do we go about making them see that it's something that either they could be affected by or someone close to them could be affected by. So just really changing our message to be positive, and that's really the biggest challenge we face.
Such important insights that Kyle Shepard and Teresa, you just shared. One of the things that I heard here was that across all the folks that have been on the panel has been those challenges of that institutionalization, as we talk about it here at EverFi. So, that passionate student activists can really get incredible work off the ground, but again, without that consistent funding, without core structure and institutional backbone support, those incredible culture-changing initiatives can sometimes have a hard time persisting. So really important messaging there as well. So thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and go into our next question.
One of the most effective drivers of change is the positive power of peer support and engagement. And we've seen such amazing responses from campaigns like It's On Us, but there are many more students who have yet to take an active role in ending sexual assault. This question goes to Kyle, Richard. What are the barriers to engaging more students, and how do we build ladders over those bridges?
Well, I believe that a barrier really lies is the individuals feel like they're not being really spoken to. It could be, in many speeches, I'm sure that we've all had here, you reach a certain amount of people, but there's also those people that linger and they're just around. They don't really, feel the need to speak out. And that could be partially because of how difficult of a topic it is to really engage in. But people just really need to realize that even though it's a difficult topic, it's a very important topic, and anybody can be a change. So not only do you have to be, like, from my point of view, be that bystander, you could be a hero to somebody's life by just speaking about it, like Tori does, like Kyle does, like Teresa does. Those are heroes too. And if you could just speak on it, you could be considered a hero in your community, or you could be part of the culture change. And having those one-on-one conversations with people, after I spoke with Joe Biden, and he was talking about the person in the locker room that, talking about athletes, because he was a football player himself, talking about the guy in the locker room that, talking about the girl that he was with last night or everything. Typically people hear that in the locker room and they're just like, oh yeah, whatever, rah, rah. But to take that person after everybody's gone and really talk to that person and say, listen, that's not right. It's about those one-on-one conversations, because that could really change somebody's life there. That's really the barrier, is being able to connect with others.
Speaking of heroes, Kyle, I was so moved by your story and hearing your story last week at the Biden Courage Awards. Could you tell us a little bit about your instance of bystander intervention and your story?
Yeah, so I was back for the summer before we had any football camp in August, and my friends from high school, we were all together at a party, and the party was over around 2, and so one of my friends said there was something coming from the bathroom, so I heard it and I didn't really think too much of it, but I was of course just gonna check it out. Um, there were more people that came in random throughout the party, so I didn't really know them, but I'm not sure if anybody else did, so I didn't really say anything, you know. Uh, but as I get to the bathroom, my friend Suleiman is on the bathroom door and he's, you know, banging and I start banging like, what's going on? Uh, we're working on the door to get it open, and when the door is open, we see a kid with his hand on a girl's neck, and she's crying, she's bleeding, but you know, at the mouth, and the whole mood of the whole night just shifted to the most negative thing that I've ever experienced in my life. Um, she runs out and I go after her and I'm asking her what's going on, what's happening, as my friend confronts him first, the perpetrator. She tells me that he's trying to rape me, he's trying to rape me, he's trying to hurt me, crying. And I look out and I see he's not in the room anymore. So I was like, you know, in my words, hell no, like this is not happening. I go outside, I run out, I try to look for him and I see him outside as if, you know, this person obviously had nobody there to tell him that thing is wrong, that's wrong, or he had no friends there that were like, yo, listen, don't do that. And the female was clearly intoxicated. He was clearly trying to take advantage. So that really pissed me off, really, you know, to some extent, to the point where I had to confront him about it. So I went to confront him and he starts backing up. I'm like, yo, what are you doing to her? What's going on? And he's just like, chill, chill, chill. And I was like, no, it's not happening. What are you doing to her? He's like, chill, chill, chill. And he pulls out a gun and he starts to shoot at me. He shot at me 3 times. He hit me 2 times and 1 in each leg. He missed over my left shoulder. My friend Suleiman, who was there to confront him at first, was actually behind me by a couple yards. And I start running and he's with me the whole time. He's like, you good? You good? And I'm like, yo, you know, I get to the hospital and I'm finally, you know, like, wow. Like I wonder how that girl feels, because I remember when I was bleeding inside, before the ambulance got there, that she looked like everything was her fault. And she just looked, you know, as if it was her fault for being in the bathroom. If it was her fault for us getting, you know, me getting shot. And my friend ultimately ended up being shot that night, 30 seconds later. And it really hurt me because I couldn't believe that, you know, somebody could think it's their fault in that sense. And that's really what's made me, you know, take the stand and use my platform the way I have today.
Wow, that's amazing, Kyle. And I think that also your example of ways that folks can intervene that are, you know, less dramatic, that you shared earlier, are also just so important as well. That, you know, you can intervene in instances of negative language or, you know, other kinds of harmful comments. I think is so important. And so, Tori, we'd love to hear. Yeah, go ahead. Tori, we'd love to hear what you see as the barriers to engaging more students, recognizing that University of Missouri has one of the largest It's On Us chapters in the entire country, but surely we know we can reach more.
Yeah, absolutely. So a big barrier that we've been dealing with, especially this year, is the barrier of our intersectionality within our organization. When myself being Greek, it was really easy to get Greek life involved in the campus, and partnering up with our baseball team, it was really easy to get athletics partnered on. But we do realize while those are 2 really large and prominent, well-known groups on campus, it's not our entire campus. And so working with the Legion of Black Collegians, which is our Black student government, and involving students from different identities and involving people and students from the LGBTQ Center because they experience violence at a higher rate. That was one barrier of, you know, how do we have these difficult conversations within those spaces? And, you know, me, myself, coming from my privilege of being a white, straight female, how do I engage with people who don't identify the same way that I do? So we experienced a lot of barriers in making sure that our movement was inclusive and making sure that we're being very intentional about that, and making sure that we feel that everybody is accepted within the It's On Us movement is something that we we have been working on. Obviously, it's not perfect, but that's definitely been a barrier in getting more students engaged, is making sure that we do really have that inclusive approach to our activism.
Tori, I'd love a follow-up question here. So I imagine that there are lots of It's On Us activists listening in on this call. And a lot of them are facing some of those barriers that you identified in really making sure that this movement to create a safe and healthy place for all students to work, live, and learn, is available to all students. What would you say would be the first thing that you would encourage other activists to do on their campus to create an inclusive movement, an inclusive chapter?
Yeah, ask for help. That's the biggest thing. Ask for help, ask for advice. Make sure that you're truly taking the time and making an effort to make those valuable relationships and connections with people from communities that are not your own. And also just being present in those spaces and showing those other organizations that you care and you are there to help them, and recognizing that you cannot experience the experiences of all. And that was, a big learning experience for me, and working with different communities on campus. But I've learned so much, and it's just having that open mind of always being willing to be engaged and keep learning, because we're all college students and we're all growing from this experience. So just actively listening and actively staying involved and being present in those conversations.
Thank you so much. So next question that we have, and this is one I think that is so important, because certainly as someone who's worked alongside many college activists over many years, I think that it can be, when you have goals and you have a passion for work, that sometimes taking care of yourself can fall to the back burner. But what we know is that in order for you to stay committed to this work and to do this work, have the honor of doing this work over 20 years, potentially, like I have, you need to create some ways to really care for yourself. So my question is, for each of you, starting Kyle Shepard with you, how do you care for yourself to stay involved in this work?
Definitely. That's a question I'm still trying to figure out every day. I would never forget this one semester where I actually became the Men of Color Alliance president, and I think I was involved with Sarah as well. I became the men's coordinator, and I was actually overloading on credits. So I was trying to make sure I graduated on time. I was taking about 21 credits, and I was working 2 jobs, one off campus and one on campus, and I had no idea how I was doing it, right? And a lot of people you just got to keep grinding. You just have to keep doing what you're doing, and sometimes that causes for late nights and things like that. Got to a point where I was just this is not healthy. The work is still going to be there in the morning. So as much as I want to get done, it's always going to be something else that I want to put on my plate. And I actually just started taking much better care of myself physically, emotionally, psychologically, and that helped me produce a lot more and stay engaged, because this type of work can be stressful, and you wonder, it just seems like the goalpost is always extended, and it seems like there's always going to be another fire that you're trying to put out. However, following the conversation from the Courage Awards, I spoke with somebody, and we talked about how important it really is just to celebrate the small wins. We really have to celebrate small wins, whatever that win looks like for you, for your campus, for your peers, or what have you, but you have to celebrate it and have to hold on to it and be able to do that. But definitely getting rest for yourself, getting sleep is definitely very important, as well as a support system. You have to have a support system around you who understands your schedule. Sometimes people do not realize how much of a support they are just by being present. Just like bystander intervention itself, you don't necessarily have to say something, you don't even necessarily have to do something, but that presence can do so much. And I think friends and colleagues and peers and mentors are the same way, where me personally, I don't always need somebody to say something to me or to do something for me, but your support could just be you being there. And that really goes a long way for somebody like me, and I'm sure so many others as well.
That is so true. Thank you, Kyle, for sharing that with us. It's important that we keep a balance in this work. I also want to ask that same question to Teresa. Teresa, how do you care for yourself to stay involved in this work?
Hey, so first, I really love what Kyle said about celebrating the small wins. I think that's really important, especially here at West Point. Sometimes people can get cynical about like the work that we do, and so just really understanding that you will have an impact, and every day like you can make a difference by just talking to someone about the topic or listening and lending an ear to someone who really needs to talk to you. How I personally self-care, I just talk to my friends. I have a really fantastic support system. I also have some really awesome mentors that I know I can always go to if I ever need help to talk to about either what I'm working on or just, you know, to go over to their house and have dinner for a night. Like, it's super important to just take time for yourself and sometimes take a step back and know that everything's going to be okay, and you just got to keep working for the end of the goal.
All of those points are spot on, Teresa, and I agree with you and Kyle both that we need to celebrate the small wins. This work can be tiring, but it's important to recognize when we have accomplishments in our work. I also want to pass it on to Tori to ask you the same question. How do you care for yourself to stay involved in this work?
Yeah, so I practice self-care in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's as simple as like going to my nails is done or taking my dog for a walk. Like it's the little things. You just need to have that me time for yourself. I found the thing that I struggled with the most was I shared my story as a survivor when I was serving as student body vice president. And after I talked about that and talked about It's on Us, a lot of other students on our campus came forward with like their disclosures to me. And so it was really frustrating to see the true impact of how many people were being assaulted on my campus. And I definitely really struggled with like reading the stories, reading the Facebook messages that people were sending me. I ended up getting like over 200 disclosures, and that can be mentally draining on yourself as you have to, you know, relive your story again and just think about the true impact that you're having, because you feel like when you're resting, you're not helping those people. But like you said, you have to celebrate the small wins. You have to realize that, you know, not one person can do everything, but everyone can do something. And that's a motto that I really try to strive for my members to uphold. With having such a large group, it's really important for them to take time for self-care and realize, like, while we are a very small army, we can't do everything, but we can do something.
That's so true, Tori. Lastly, I want to pass this over to Kyle Richard for the same question as well. Kyle, how do you care for yourself to stay involved in sexual assault prevention?
Well, for me, I might need to take actually some tips from everybody else because I'm so brand new to this. Really, the last 2 months have been a lot with the academics, with being the leader of the football team, and with really promoting and doing speeches and speaking out against sexual violence. I've had a lot of sleepless nights with work, work overload and a whole bunch of other things that go around football itself. But it's really for a good cause, and I've really been talking to my football coaches about it, about how I could, help myself a little bit, whether it's, taking a rest, in the weight room, just being there for the guys or something. But it really hit me when after the Courage Award, in New York City, I realized, like, wow, my practice is at 7:30 in the morning, and my drive is about 5 hours away. So I ended up driving, that morning up to practice, and I looked like a zombie. They were not happy about it, and of course, like, I wasn't really happy about it. But really, like they were talking about support cast, my team, I have 100 players on the team that, support me every day, and they support my endeavors. So that really helps, and that it's really about staying around people that, are there for you and they want to see you succeed. And like Tori said, she's been getting a lot of messages, with support, so that, Tori feels, actually it is tiring, but it is a good thing, that people are contacting her. So we get a lot of people contacting me, usually around the same, guidelines, whether it's victims or friends of victims that are really inspired by my story. that keeps me going. You know, reading those, you know, getting a chance to read emails or read messages, direct messages, is really inspiring, and it does make me feel like what I'm doing is really worth it.
You know, a number of you touched on something that I think really is an important part of a college activist experience, which is that once you become known on campus as someone who cares about this work, who is knowledgeable, who's going to be a person who doesn't place blame on a person, that you end up receiving a lot of disclosures. I think that that's probably a really common experience for lots of students who are engaged in this activism across the country. So really appreciate both of you sharing that perspective and helping other college activists recognize that it's important to care for yourself so that you can continue to care for others in this work. So thank you so much. One of the things that we here at EverFi, because we work with 1,700 schools and colleges and we reach 5 million learners, we sometimes have the opportunity to really just share what we learn about sexual assault prevention with college presidents and vice presidents and boards of regents. And so for this next question, I'd like for you to imagine or to recognize that you have the ears of college presidents across the country. What would you want a college president to know about sexual assault prevention on campus? What would you want to tell a college president about the work that you're doing? And I'd love to hear from everybody on this issue. But if I could start, Teresa, with you.
Yeah, so I think this is an awesome question. I think first and foremost what I'd say is that sexual assault prevention is an extremely important topic. So it's a conversation that needs to be had amongst everyone at the school if possible. But the way to go about that is definitely through positive messaging, and I think that's something we've learned over the past few years here at West Point, is that you really have to come at people and talk about how they can be better in their relationships and how they can help their friends, as opposed to being accusatory or going into these conversations, you know, with men thinking that we're telling them that they're all bad people, because that's not the case. So really just positive messaging and trying to get the whole community involved with the work.
I hope that college presidents are listening, and I know for sure we're going to take this wisdom and make sure that we share it with those important decision makers. Kyle Richard, what would you like for college presidents to know?
For me, I would believe that I think that the biggest thing is for a president to know that say out of 100 rape attempts, 66% of them are completed while there's bystanders there, which is very unfortunate. It does drop 44%, which means that there are things being done. But it would really take a lot for presidents to really speak on being active and helping somebody else's life in a positive way. So presidents all know that if your school is considered to be one of that has a bar scene or a party scene, it's important for especially those schools where it can happen anywhere, but predominantly in those schools where it's a 1 in 4 chance of a female being a victim of sexual violence. But if she could really speak on being that bystander and being a great friend to somebody else, or not even being a friend, just being a human, and really, helping somebody else's life by stopping this stuff from happening, having a conversation, that would mean the most to me.
Kyle Richard, I think that you make a really important point. One of the things that we've learned in our research with effective sexual assault prevention programs is that having a college president, vice president, board of regents talk about this work publicly in meaningful ways and informed ways transforms a college campus and really drives the kind of attention that's needed. So, Teresa, you mentioned this as well, and so thank you both. Tori, I imagine that you have a lot of thoughts on this issue as well. We'd love to hear them.
Yeah, so one of our first initiatives at the beginning of this year actually was to get we have a board of curators and then a system president who sits, at the top of our board members for our 4 system schools. And our first initiative was to get all of those people to take the It's on Us pledge and take it on behalf of the University of Missouri school system. So it was the first step was getting our college president to acknowledge that this was an issue on our campus, and also having our chancellor sign on and take the pledge as well. But after they acknowledge it and they really start being a stakeholder in the movement for you, I think that it's really important for college presidents to take a step further and then discuss it in terms of funding, because and not just like funding for the programming that happens, but funding for your staff who are working at your campus's rape crisis center, and funding for your staff who work in your Title IX office. Because while the 3 students on this call, they're amazing student workers, but we're only going to be on the college campus for so long, and it's really important for college presidents to have that support after we are gone, to make sure that they're paying staff accordingly to do the work and be able to support students who are working in these initiatives, and making sure that the students like us have mentors there. So I really want college presidents to know that they should be putting monetary funds in the direction of sexual assault prevention, because it's needed.
Oh, gosh, could not say it better. One of the things that we've discovered from our research here at EverFi is that when we look at colleges across the country, the average institution is spending less than $5 per student on sexual assault prevention, which is, the cost of a cheap t-shirt or an expensive coffee. And so we certainly know that the safety and health and well-being of students is worth investing in. I really appreciate that response. And Kyle Shepard, absolutely, I'd love to hear from you. I know you have certainly lots that you would want to tell college presidents, but from your role also as someone who is deeply involved in Greek life, would love to also hear if there's anything that you would want for your national fraternal and national sorority leaders to also hear about this issue.
Definitely, I appreciate that. I'll try to tackle both of those components briefly, because I think the speakers before me covered a lot of it. So in regards to the university presidents, I had the pleasure and the fortunate opportunity of actually sitting down one-on-one with our university president some months ago. I think it was my first semester in grad school, and talking about a lot of different things, different initiatives, and kind of seeing what his schedule was like to be able to incorporate things into, what he already has taken place, what is his agenda, what his vision is like for the university. I think it was his about 8th year going forward. So sitting down with him to understand what type of things on his plate, I think it's grateful to understand that they have a lot on their plate. However, we have to make time for and we have to prioritize things and issues like this, especially in regards to some of the statistics that Kyle Richard just shared. I mean, one is enough, and not even just one, but an instance of something almost happening is enough, and that's why prevention is so poor. We don't need high numbers, or we don't need to wait until the statistics become too many. I mean, one is too many from there, and we have to really prevent that before it starts. So I think also, I believe Tori mentioned, where if we can incorporate it into a system already, we have to be able to allow it to work, and then we have to actually follow through on it. We have to evaluate it. We see so many, strategic analysis that are put forward and strategies that universities have to see these different initiatives as they take place, but we have to circle back to them and see, well, what worked, what didn't work, and how can we improve it? What were the strengths and weaknesses of it, and how can it improve? And we have to put the resources in place, and we have to prioritize the assessment of those actual things that we're trying to study. And that takes courage, that takes courage in itself. And to answer your second component in terms of MPHC, I would say that I want universities and also Greek organizations and members to understand the power that they have. So I won't go too far into it, but a good friend of mine and another fraternity shared with me that so many rules or bylaws and in the way that fraternities operate and sororities operate at a local level, at a university level, can be dictated by the MPHC executive board at that university, which then can override what the university puts forth, and it can override what the national organization puts into effect. Because essentially, whatever that board is requiring in terms of training, awareness, information, things like that they want to do at that local level can then be, put forth, and hopefully we'll see it spread to other universities. So definitely just understanding the power that you have in involving that intersectionality component that somebody mentioned earlier, and figuring out like how do our different organizations, fraternal, sorority, and what ties in hand and what commonalities do we have, and how do we sit down and put this into policy and really believe in that power, because the power is there. I think sometimes we just wait on somebody else to do it for us, but the power is definitely in our hands to do so. It only takes one person.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, all of you. I cannot believe that we are already out of time. I would love to sit down and talk with a couple hours with each of you. I've been just so inspired by what you've shared today, your perspective, the insights, the way in which you've really woven together your personal experiences with data, understanding, what we know from the research literature is a best practice in prevention. Thank you so much. This has just been incredibly inspiring. We're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about how folks who are listening in on this webinar can get involved with It's On Us. Elvin?
Thanks, Holly. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, throughout the last 3.5 years, It's On Us has engaged students on over 500 college and university campuses in our campus organizing program, and our student leaders have held more than 3,500 sexual assault prevention education programs nationwide. You've heard from some of our student leaders, such as Tori from the University of Missouri, where we have our largest It's On Us chapter. This week, It's On Us launched our 2018-2019 student leader application. On your screen, you should see the link where you can find the application to apply to be a student leader next year or to start your own It's On Us campus chapter. That link is bit.ly/IOU leaders. I encourage you to take a look at the application and encourage your students to apply, or if you yourself are a student, to apply and start a It's On Us chapter on your campus so that you can take a stand against sexual assault.
Oh, thank you so much. I bet that the next It's On Us leaders, the Biden Courage Award winners, are listening in right now. For those campus practitioners, we're coming up on the CPN Summit. This is EverFi's annual gathering of the best and cutting-edge work that's happening across critical areas of student well-being, health, and safety, along with the well-being, safety, and health of faculty and staff. That's going to be in New Orleans, June 6th through 8th. We encourage you to join us for what's going to be an amazing 3 days. More information about the summit is here at the bottom of the screen. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague, Michele. And thank you, everyone on the line, for joining us to hear the voices and perspectives of these amazing students. And once again, my profound thanks go out to Teresa Hinman, Kyle Richard, Tori Schaefer, and Kyle Shepard. You are an inspiration to me. Certainly, hearing you today, it's clear that you do have, the voice of the future and the vision to bring us there. And I'm so excited to see what happens with your work next. So, Michele, go ahead and take it from here.
Thanks, Holly. And I'd like to second you in thanking everybody that's participated today, our panelists and the award winners and their incredible stories and testimony. And you and I, Holly, have run a number of webinars, but I want to say that this has been very, very special to me. To see that there are young people that are acting upon a lot of the things that we work with every day and are there championing the behaviors that we want to see more out there. It's very, very exciting for us at EverFi. So thanks again to all the Biden Courage Award winners that kindly participated today. A lot of them took time out of their academic schedule to be present. So again, we can't thank you enough. And by the same token, we would like to thank our attendees who have been with us throughout this event. Thank you so much for joining our webinars once again. I'm just going to close out with the usual 3 announcements. One is that the slides and the recording will be mailed to all of you at the end of this event. And also that please, once you do close out, there will be a poll that initiates. It's about the quality of this event. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes to complete. So if you'd all be kind enough to complete it, that would help us very much. With that, I think we're pretty much come at the top of the hour. So that's all for today. Thanks again, everybody, and stay tuned for the next EverFi webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.